Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here today, and welcome to the Summer Innovation Speaker Series focusing on AI in Florida. My name is Diana Beckman. I'm the Executive Director here at Florida House on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. It's hot and humid in our nation's capital, and so I'm happy to report it feels just like home. Our mission here at Florida House is to connect, celebrate, and champion Florida to the world. And we do this through a number of avenues, including this tremendous series. This year is our 50th anniversary here at Florida House. We continue to be the only state with an embassy, and we are nonpartisan, nonprofit, and we take no money from the state of Florida. We've always been a unique place here on Capitol Hill, and we love welcoming Floridians and Floridians at heart to come and learn more about our great state and everything that it has to offer. So if you're ever in Washington, D.C., please come and visit us. We're just behind the Supreme Court. We would love to have y'all here. We do a lot of work here at Florida House with partners, for everything from our corporate partners to our fantastic trustees to program partners like the Cade Museum of Creativity and Innovation and the Florida Inventors Hall of Fame. We are so proud to be working with these two groups on this outstanding series and hope that you've been enjoying it so far. But enough about me, because I know you want to get to the good stuff. So I'm going to introduce you to Jamie Spurrier. She's a program manager with the Florida Inventors Hall of Fame. Jamie, we are so excited about this, working with y'all and this upcoming event. So over to you.
Thanks, Diana. Yes, we're very excited too, and thank you very much for that introduction, and welcome everybody again back for this week's session on AI. Today we're going to be meeting with one of the Florida Inventors Hall of Fame partners, Captain Rob Betts from the Naval Air Warfare Center Training System Division out of Orlando. But before we jump into that, and James will, lead us in another wonderful interview, I want to first thank our partners at Florida House on Capitol Hill, as well as the Cade Museum for Creativity and Invention. We're just, again, so excited to partner with you all. At the Florida Inventors Hall of Fame, we are looking to create a culture shift here in Florida to celebrate our state's inventors and innovators the way we would celebrate our national heroes. Our mission is to encourage individuals of all ages and backgrounds to strive toward the betterment of society through continuous groundbreaking innovation by supporting a culture of creativity, one that fuels innovation, drives economic growth, and encourages investment in Florida. To date, we have inducted 68 remarkable inventors who hold collectively over 5,000 patents. Some of our inductees include Thomas Edison, as well as Hollywood icon Hedy Lamarr, Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx, and of course, Dr. James Robert Cade, the inventor of Gatorade. We also recently launched our new Ignite Education and Community Outreach program for the purpose of inspiring generations of new inventors through engagement. We're a statewide program located at the University of South Florida's Tampa campus, and we invite you to visit us anytime online or in person. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce to you Edgar O'Neill Figueroa, the program coordinator for the Cade Museum for Creativity and Invention.
Right. Thank you, Jamie. I'm excited to be here today on behalf of the Cade Museum for Creativity and Invention to help kick off today's program. And I, of course, want to thank Florida Inventors Hall of Fame and Florida House on Capitol Hill for being incredible partners and putting this series together. And then just to let the audience know a little bit more about the Cade Museum, our mission is to transform communities through inspiring and equipping future inventors, entrepreneurs, and visionaries. The museum gets its name for Mary Cade and her husband, Dr. James Robert Cade, who is a doctor, musician, poet, and the lead inventor of Gatorade. The museum is designed to promote the development of an inventive mindset, which we at the Cade call inventivity. And through our proprietary invention education framework, we create outreach programs and exhibits that spark wonder and teach STEAM concepts through the lens of invention. And one of our marquee programs, the Cade Prize, which is a competition that awards inventors and entrepreneurs, has actually gone national this year. And with that, we'll be awarding $100,000 in cash prizes. Applications for this year are currently open, but they are closing soon on July 31st. But you can find more information on our website, cademuseum.org. Now to really jump into it, I'd like to welcome back James DiVirgilio as our moderator for today's program. James is one of the country's leading fiduciary investors and financial planners, as well as the co-founder of Chacon, Diaz, and DiVirgilio Wealth Management. He has been featured on the world's largest news networks, was a Gator 100 honoree, and a 40 Gators Under 40 award winner. James is also an adjunct professor at the University of Florida, the co-host of the Gator Nation Football Podcast, the co-host of the Inventivity Pod, and on the board of directors for the Cade Museum. All right, I'm really looking forward to the conversation they're going to have today. I'm going to hand it over to you, James. Thank you.
Thanks, Edgar. I appreciate that as always, and it's great to be here back with all of you today. And I'm really excited for our guest for multiple reasons today. Our guest is Captain Robert Betts. He holds a master's degree in modeling, virtual environments, and simulations from the Navy Postgraduate School, and advanced certifications in program management and engineering from the Defense Acquisition University. Betts served an operational tour with the world-famous Black Aces of Strike Fighter Squadron 41, deploying abroad USS Nimitz with Carrier Airwing 11 in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom. Captain Betts' personal decorations include the Defense Superior Service Medal, the Defense Meritorious Service Medal, the Meritorious Service Medal, the Strike Flight Air Medal, and numerous other unit awards and citations. Captain Betts, welcome to the program today. I'm really excited about talking about artificial intelligence with you.
Thanks so much, James. I really appreciate it. Happy to be here and look forward to the discussion.
So let's just open this up right away with what is currently happening with artificial intelligence in the military.
Whew. How long is this program? 4 hours?
Right?
No. So the defense is, Department of Defense is actively looking at any way to use artificial intelligence to benefit the warfighter. We have several different avenues that we're looking at. In particular, we're looking at kind of 5 main focus areas: kind of autonomous systems, how AI can assist us with making decisions, how we can use it for predictive maintenance, using training and simulation, and then kind of image and signal processing. Those are kind of the 5 big areas. Numerous projects in each one of those. Obviously, we could spend hours probably talking about any of those specific areas.
Well, let's dive a little further into it, because we've spent the summer talking about artificial intelligence from an educational standpoint, a business standpoint, from a graphics display standpoint. All of those things, of course, come to play in the military. And often, if we think of pop culture, movies, entertainment, sci-fi and the military go hand in hand together. So let me first ask sort of a broad philosophical question. AI is either viewed as an excellent opportunity, which we've heard for the future, or a significant threat. I imagine the military, it's both of those things. But do you see AI more as an opportunity for better protection for Homeland Security, better opportunities to run warfare units, or is it more of a threat?
I see it as making things better, right? I know there's a fear out there. We were talking. I remember when I was a kid, war games came out and the computer almost launched nuclear missiles. Everyone's familiar with Terminator and HAL from 2001: A Space Odyssey, right? And so there's always the fear that, hey, that the AI is going to become smarter than us and it's going to realize it doesn't need us. To be fair, a lot of our AI that we're seeing right now, right? Hey, it can make mistakes. It does make mistakes.
Yeah, it certainly does. And I think that's one thing we've talked about really all summer long.
And so one of the things from a perspective that...
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry to cut you off.
No, I was just going to tie into what you said there and say what we've seen all summer long is that humans make mistakes all the time. And the idea that AI will not make mistakes is seemingly not realistic, given that humans, of course, are still creating the AI. But yes, please carry on with your thought.
Absolutely. Right. And so one of the things from a department perspective that we really focused on is if we want to use AI to the maximum extent possible, we have to be able to trust AI, right? We have to understand, hey, what is the data that's underpinning the decisions and the recommendations that the artificial intelligence is making? One of the things that we're really focusing on is kind of 3-pronged approach, right? Do we have the infrastructure to support artificial intelligence from a defense perspective? Where is the data coming from? What is the quality of that data? And how do we tag that data appropriately to make sure that we know what underpins the AI recommendation? And then finally, from workforce perspective, if the artificial intelligence is going to make recommendations to us, do we understand it? Do we understand how best to utilize and interpret those recommendations? And so really focusing on those 3 key areas with respect to utilizing AI to its maximum benefit.
So you flew F-18s when you were in combat, and now that you're no longer operational, you've spent a lot of time working on a very advanced airplane, the F-35. Is AI being utilized with anything that has to do with supporting that airplane or in flight right now?
It is. I don't think I can go into what it is being used for, uh, but there is some machine learning going on behind the scenes for some of the F-35 sensors.
So let's talk abstractly then. What may help flying a fighter plane just become a safer or even just a increased probability of success? Just at a general level, what are some things that can be done? Are we talking about autopilot systems? Are we talking about communication back and forth to the ground with other pilots? Like, what are some things that may assist or make things better?
I think a couple of things, right? One of the things would be to improve the training that a pilot gets before he or she, excuse me, ever gets to the cockpit, right? A lot of times we are going more towards using virtual and constructive means to train our pilots because we don't have the range space, we don't have the adversaries, we don't have emitters, et cetera. And so when we're using that virtual constructive space and synthetic entities to train our pilots, we need our synthetic entities to have that artificial intelligence background so that they're responding more like an intelligent entity instead of just I am a block that moves this way and I don't really respond to any sort of action. So that's kind of before the pilot ever gets to the cockpit, is we're looking for the way artificial intelligence can impact our synthetic entities in the training and simulation frame. Next, once a pilot gets into the aircraft, there's a lot of advanced sensors on the F-35, right? You hit on it. It is a flying sensor. It is pulling information in from all 360 degrees. And so it is hard for a pilot to process all of that information that is coming into it at once, right? And so it would be great if we had an artificial intelligence, some sort of machine learning, what have you, that can look at all the image that's coming in, process it, and be able to do image recognition, target recognition, things like that, so that the pilot doesn't have to spend time head down in the cockpit trying to figure out, okay, am I seeing a target? Is that a friendly? What am I looking at? Instead of the artificial intelligence can do that signal to noise ratio processing and take that out of the pilot's hands and make recommendations. That would be a huge help for our men and women in the cockpit.
Yeah, significant gain in efficiency. You'd mentioned talking about simulations. Talk a little bit about how much time is spent in a simulation as a modern day fighter pilot versus actually in the cockpit.
Right now, I don't quote me on these numbers, right? This better not show up in a press release tomorrow. Right now it's probably about 25% in the simulator to about 75% in the aircraft as you're going through your training syllabus. But the Navy is actively looking at ways to reduce that live fly number and increase the simulator number. Just because aircraft are hard to maintain, right? And if you start looking at aircraft readiness, operational readiness, those are one of the things that we're always focused on. Plus, like I talked about earlier, if I can get better training out of a simulator, well, then it only makes sense to move as much of that live flight into the simulator as I can so that I can maximize my training dollars and my time spent in the air. So right now, I know that there's a push to go 50-50. I think we'll probably end up somewhere around 60-40. Just based on, and again, I'm an old pilot, right? Hey, we like to be in the air. No one joined the military to fly simulators, right? I get that, but it comes to a point where, hey, if taxpayer dollars are better spent getting better training in the simulator, then it makes more sense to do that than to go out in the air.
Yeah, and that alone really shows how far we've come when it comes to kind of putting together our themes of the summer. People creating AI in graphical units, AI being intelligent enough to challenge pilots, AI being able to randomly model different environments that are going on to challenge a pilot, and all that being done safely, no risk to the aircraft, no risk to the pilot while training. So obviously a lot of benefits there. All right, let's zoom back out and let's talk about strategy.
Okay.
So in the military right now, obviously with where you are, with what's happening, how many discussions are going on during the year where maybe it's broad level, again, everything's broad level right here, but what kind of strategy are we going to employ to best utilize AI? And then perhaps how do we incorporate that? Are we going to universities? Are we going to the Naval Academy? Are we going to, each branch? Are they going to their respective areas and saying, we need to teach our graduates, our students in these type of capabilities? I mean, what is kind of the move to sort of adapt AI across the military?
So right now the department is trying to take a very a very holistic approach. And as is wont to happen when you have 5 services, everybody's trying to do their own thing. And so in 2022, the department actually stood up its Chief Digital and Artificial Intelligence Office that is supposed to be monitoring and kind of providing policy and updates for the Department of Defense for artificial intelligence as a whole. And in fact, the Department of Defense, the U.S. Department of Defense has put out a responsible artificial intelligence policy, right, to make sure that we are using artificial intelligence in an ethical manner. In fact, it's got 5 ethical AI principles, right? Our use of AI needs to be responsible, equitable, traceable, reliable, and governable. And that's one of the things that all of the service chiefs have talked about recently, is that our use of artificial intelligence needs to be closely monitored so that we can make sure that the artificial intelligence helps provide the data to decision makers, but they don't make the decisions, right? They want to manage information to generate that decisional advantage. And so from an overarching perspective, that the CDAO is setting AI policy. And then each of those services have a chief technology officer that is then focused on, okay, here are AI perspectives. For example, in the Navy, and the Navy's really the only one I can speak to, the Chief of Naval Operations has put in his NAV plan, hey, artificial intelligence is one of my navigation plan initiatives. This is one of the things the Navy is going to focus on. And it's an enabling objective for a lot of our future capabilities that we're working towards. It's led by the Chief of Naval Research, and that is who is honchoing the AI effort from a Navy perspective. Chief of Naval Research is going to, they're focused on, okay, let's start working with the universities, let's start working with industry, let's start working with small business and figure out how we can, let's leverage what industry has already done with AI and leverage the development and the research and development that's already gone into that in order to make AI better for the department. So I think that was kind of a Navy-centric answer. I apologize for that, but that's the brown uniform I got on.
No, that's the right answer. I mean, you're in the Navy after all. I think military is just a broad scope, because we can imagine that similar things are going on in other departments in their own ways, of course, with all due respect to each, with each department, for sure. So back to Terminator and Skynet. Let's assume that the AI itself is not going to become aware, but what do we do about other countries that may not be so ethical? You mentioned ethical statements. We've talked this summer about other countries signing ethical documents. What's to stop a country from being unethical and using AI in ways that may not be so great for the world?
Ooh, political discussions. All right. So I know that Deputy Secretary of Defense Hicks has gone on record as saying, hey, we want to have those discussions with other countries, right? We promote and we definitely recommend ethical artificial intelligence behavior, and we want other countries to get on board and have those discussions with us. I know that is where it's at right now. I don't have a better answer for you other than we should have those discussions to make sure that everyone's on the same playing field, right? I have heard of a recommendation that we have something similar to the Geneva Convention for Artificial Intelligence, where everyone can sit around and say, okay, these are the rules that we're all going to play by when we're using artificial intelligence, similar to the kind of the agreement that everyone's made with respect to nuclear weapons. So
right, and great segue, by the way. Movie Oppenheimer coming out very soon.
Yeah, that's right.
Weapons, and oddly enough, nuclear weapons have in fact ushered in the most peaceful age as far as modern humanity goes, with less war between countries, etc. Despite the fact that we have the most powerful
weapons of mass.
Right. Do you think AI is perhaps a similar line of that? Like, there's a lot of fear around it, but is it even more of a deterrent? Obviously, if we're scaling up and every country scales up, is it maybe even harder to then attack your neighbor than before?
I know that's definitely it's definitely a possibility. I'll be honest with you, I'm not smart enough in that particular aspect of AI. I know that's one of the things that some aspects or some organizations are focused on, is how do we use artificial intelligence to constantly monitor and look for threats, right? Again, going back to that kind of image and signal processing and signal to noise ratios. If I have an artificial intelligence that can just be observant 24 hours a day and looking for things, that's better than trying to keep a man in the loop, et cetera, making sure that the skies are clear, et cetera. But then you get into, hey, is the AI making the decision, or is the AI just executing the decision that was made? And I think that's really going to be the crux of it, is where do we draw the line between decision makers and the execution of that decision?
you have any examples of AI in your life currently as it's impacting your day-to-day professional responsibilities in a way that's benefiting your job from, let's say today versus 15, 20 years ago?
Oh man, I mean, Siri, Alexa, you know, Echo. It's great. Now my kids can ask Alexa questions instead of asking me questions. It's awesome. From a trying to think of anything else in my life right now. I mean, there's the Navy is coming out with its own kind of chatbot, right? Amelia is what they're calling it. So right now, if you're a Navy and Marine Corps internet user, there are a couple different help desks that you call whenever you have a technical issue, right? What the Navy's trying to do is consolidate all those help desks into Amelia. And so you call Amelia, or you can text Amelia. Amelia can answer your question, but it is a large language model, kind of like ChatGPT, that can answer all of the questions that it has been trained on, with data and everything from tech support. And so I'm actually looking forward to that coming out, because it's supposed to reduce the time that you spend waiting for an operator to answer your call. So that's something that comes to mind. I think it's supposed to be rolled out this August. But that would be an example of AI that I'm actually looking forward to in the future.
Yeah, and we've definitely reached a time when those actually work. I think for a long time you'd get the bot and you're like, oh man, just zero,
Yeah.
zero, zero, or rep,
Just screaming representative into the phone.
right.
Yeah.
Please get me to somebody right now.
Yep.
Yeah, I think of Amazon and others where actually those bots are extremely useful in handling basic things, and then it does connect you to a human faster. So to your point, in the Navy, I'm sure there's countless applications where people have questions or things going on where that could be
Yes.
helpful. So it sounds like you're describing artificial intelligence and how you view it more as there's kind of like this debate, right, between augmented intelligence and then artificial. It sounds to me like a lot of what you are describing you would view as augmented intelligence, where it's going to basically, in your example of the naval aviator, it's going to improve the human's ability to make decisions in real time, therefore augmenting their intelligence. Is that kind of how you would feel about it at a broad stroke?
Yeah, right now, I feel like that's where we are. Is we're looking at the artificial intelligence improving life for the user, but also making warfighters' jobs easier. Right. Those are the things that the department is really focused on. Is, hey, how do we make the pilot in the cockpit? How do we make the ship driver? How do we make the Marine on the ground? How do we make their lives better and their jobs easier through the use of artificial intelligence?
Which is the right mandate. Also sticking with movie themes, because we're on them. One of my favorite movies of all time is the original Top Gun. And in that movie, they describe something you're describing now, which is, hey, look, these are new generations of warfighters. The dogfighting doesn't exist anymore. And that's even more so today, right? Like you mentioned, up in the skies of what's going on. Drones get a lot of talk and discussion. How far away are we from just automated fighter pilots and basically pilots not being in a plane at all?
That's a great question. We have there have been discussions, and I've participated in discussions that people have said, hey, the F-35 will be the last manned aircraft that we purchase. Right? Everyone has talked about 6th gen being unmanned. I don't know that we're there yet, to be honest, and this is my opinion. I think that there will always be a place for a pilot in an aircraft on scene. Now, I think that pilot could absolutely benefit from a swarm of drones that he or she is managing. You get those autonomous systems out there that once they're given a task, now they can go off and do. But I think that the human in the loop will always need to be close by to actually tell that drone what the task is, instead of letting the drone make its decision on its own. But that's another thing that the department is definitely leaning very far forward on with autonomous systems. Here at NOC TSD, we actually have created kind of a synthetic test bed for autonomous systems where, hey, if you want to take your software, you want to bring it into our test bed and look at our facility and say, hey, here's some of the things you can do, test it out, go ahead and see how it's going to behave out in the actual environment.
Yeah, that's quite a world to imagine, right? Just like an automated fighter squadron, and then everyone having automated stuff in the air. It seems crazy to think we're living in an age where that's seemingly right around the corner, as you just mentioned.
Yes, it's seemingly possible.
Right. There are people who think that the F-35 is the last, sort of manned one. It's probably going to take longer than that, as it often does. But to your point, that is a pretty unreal situation. All right. So we've talked a lot about a lot of things in AR here in the Navy, AI in the Navy, and et cetera. But looking at what you're doing specifically here for the future, what excites you most about the potential for AI down the road in the near term, let's say in the next 5 years? And then what excites you most about maybe what it looks like 15 years from now?
Okay. So for me, with my background, the thing that I always get very passionate about is training and simulation, right? And so when I look at what are we going to do in the next 5 years that's really going to move the needle, I start looking at our synthetic environments and how we're going to train our warfighters. And I start figuring out, or I start looking at, okay, how are we going to improve our synthetic entities that we can give our warfighters the best possible training? And that, a lot of that is going to be predicated upon the behaviors that we're able to instill in them through the use of artificial intelligence. And so for me, knowing that in the Navy's next generation threat system, which is our kind of our program of record, threat generation program, we're definitely leaning forward hard into embedding those behaviors into those specific threat entities. And so I'm very much looking forward to how that takes off in the future in the next 5 years. 10 to 15 years from now, in my head, right, I see the big picture. Everybody's used to the big war screen in front of a conference room, right? And everybody's looking at it, and you can see all the dots moving around. And hey, here's the blue guys over here, and here's the red guys, and here's the order of battle. I see artificial intelligence being able to cut through all the chaff on the common operating picture and show everybody the recommendations for courses of action. If you're familiar with Colonel John Boyd, who came up with the OODA loop back in the 50s and 60s, observe, orient, decide, act, right? Well, if you can get inside of your enemy's OODA loop and you can make decisions faster, now you're forcing them to react to you instead of giving the opportunity to make their own decisions and decide their own courses of action. And so I think that's where AI is really going to give us the advantage, is allowing us to make correct decisions faster, to stay inside of our enemy's OODA loop and force them to react to us.
Yeah, I love that term. I've not heard that, but you did just touch on my absolute favorite subject, which is game theory. And that's exactly what you're describing. If I know what you know and you know what I know, then what do we do next? And that just keeps escalating. And that's what you just described there. It's a fascinating.
It keeps escalating. Yeah.
That's correct. Fascinating subject for sure. And things will only get faster with those decisions, as you mentioned. And that's a topic I could spend a long time talking about. But for now, I want to allow the audience to jump in here with Captain.
Oh, no.
That's right. Look out. Now it's really going to get to you can ask some questions. Any question you want, you can just put that in the chat, and then I will ask Captain Betts for you. And we'll start off here right away with a layup. This is a nice, simple one for you. What can young people do to prepare themselves for a career in your field, much like you have achieved?
Oh man. So I would just say prepare themselves for a career in my field. I'm an acquisition professional in the Department of Defense, and so really it's you've got to stick through science. You got to stick through math. You've got to put the work in the STEM fields to become smart and knowledgeable in that area. And then something else that I always tell people, and it sounds so trite. I hate saying it out. Always makes fun of me for this. I always say, like, take the hard jobs, right? Like go do something you're uncomfortable with. That's the way to figure out, hey, am I passionate about this? No, not really. But if it's a hard job, if you're passionate about it, it'll still be fun. And so I always tell people to take the hard jobs and stick with the STEM jobs. Those segue perfectly into what we're doing here. Here at NOC TSD, we've got about 1,255 civilians. Most of them are in the STEM field: science, technology, engineering. We always need visual engineers, software engineers, system engineers, electrical engineers. Those engineering fields are the reason why the department continues to make its technical advances. Sorry, that was kind of a ramble there on the end.
That was great. I think you hit all the important parts there, and I'll ask you a follow-up to that. What's the best part about having a career in the Navy?
Oh, we get to do really fun stuff. Like, again, I've seen things. I've been places that I couldn't have dreamed. Right. I grew up in rural Louisiana, very small town, and so having been to some of the places that I've been and seen some of the things that I've seen, it's been truly fascinating. I consider myself blessed beyond belief to have been in the Navy, and I've also met lifelong friends. Right. People that you haven't seen in 20 years, you give them a call on the phone and it's like you never left off. And so the things that I've seen and done, it's made it all worthwhile.
Oh, that's fantastic. All right. Is the Navy chatbot, Amelia, designed to operate at extreme ocean depths, perhaps on obviously used for submarines?
Ooh. I don't think so. Normally, when those guys are out and about, they're pretty calms out. They pride themselves on no one knowing where they are, and so they try to stay quiet and self sufficient when they're at extreme ocean depths. But I'd have to let one of the sub guys answer, and we don't know where any of them are.
Yeah,
So
that's a great lead-in for Tom Cruise and Mission Impossible this summer. Go check that one out. You'll learn more about that situation.
Yeah,
there you go. All right, we have a question. What happens if a pilot makes? Ooh, here's a good one. Makes a bad decision based upon information from AI.
Oh, that is a good question. I don't know that it's happened yet. It honestly, it depends on what action was executed, right? And so it could. Wow. I'm leery to say this. I don't know who's online. It could go anywhere from, hey, we misidentified we had the opportunity to prosecute an enemy target and we didn't take advantage of it because the AI said that it wasn't friendly, or it could go vice versa, right? And that's kind of the way I'm leaning to with respect to that question. And then the other piece would be that's really what I'm thinking right now is it would come in the prosecution of a target, and most likely it would and again, that's why we would have the human in the loop, right? The artificial intelligence they could process the signal, they could take a look at it, they could make a recommendation, but ultimately it is up to the pilot in the cockpit to make that decision.
Right. Yeah, and that's not different than so many decisions that have been made by pilots throughout the past 100 years on information they're getting, whether it's from here, there, or elsewhere. Yep. You don't always have the perfect amount of information when you're making a decision. So yeah, very complicated. Okay, would artificial intelligence used in the Navy, I think you already answered this, but maybe expound a little further, go beyond the pilots, navigators, etc.? Like, would mechanics use AI? Are the guys on the ground going to be using AI?
Mechanics would use AI, and I'm so glad someone asked that question. That's a great question. So one of the other opportunities that the department is really taking a look at is, again, speaking primarily from the Department of the Navy and naval aviation in particular, is predictive maintenance, right? How can we use artificial intelligence to figure out, like, okay, when is this equipment possibly going to break? When does it need to come in for some maintenance so that we can keep all of our systems up and flying or up and sailing in a max operational capacity? And so predictive maintenance is something that we are absolutely taking a look at here at NOC-TSD in particular. We have our HART program, which is predictive condition-based maintenance plus using actual F-18 data. We've been able to save the department about $13 million over the last fiscal year because we've been able to tell when a lot of aircraft should go into maintenance or when we can extend these out a little bit farther. And really, it's all focused on how do we maintain the maximum operational readiness for our aircraft fleet is what that particular program is focused on. And so, yes, great question. And yes, the maintainers do use that. Predictive maintenance is going to be huge in the future.
And that ties in really nicely. We did a segment with agriculture and AI, and the company does exactly that, just with orange groves, but same concept. Like, they can basically figure out which trees, disease, rot, etc., and it saves a ton of money rather than driving around looking at them. That's just, it doesn't work well. That's a nice tie-in. How accepting are the individual servicemen and women of AI entering into their everyday life?
That is a great question. Right now, I would say there's a lot of skepticism, probably healthy skepticism again, but the trust comes in with what is the quality of the data. You have to know the quality of the data that is underpinning the decision or the recommendation made by the artificial intelligence. I can't remember the exact program, but I know that there was a program presented to a lot of senior DoD leaders, and they said, "Hey, this is great. This could absolutely change like war fighting out in the front lines, but where is the data coming from, right? How do we trust this? We need to know the algorithms that develop this. We need to know the data that go into this that is being used to make these decisions." And so I think, and we hit upon this briefly right at the beginning, the more the department works on this and the more we focus on the quality of our data and making sure that we understand where the data is coming from, the algorithms that underpin those decisions, that trust will be built, as AI proves itself to be more and more reliable. But I kind of view it as no different than any other system being introduced into the department, right? When the F-35 first came into the Navy fleet, for example, there was a lot of skepticism. Oh, this will never work, right? It's a single engine fighter going out to a carrier, that we haven't done that since the 60s. And so there's kind of that healthy skepticism of something. And it's just like the new kid on the team, right? Hey, you got to prove yourself before people start throwing you the ball. I think I mixed metaphors there, but yeah.
No, I think that's strong. I definitely think, like you mentioned, Alexa, which, for a while people were afraid of Alexa. People might still be afraid of Alexa, but most people are using Alexa in ways that benefit what's going on. But anything new, I mean, one of my favorite stories in innovation of all time has to do with New York City and horses in the early 1900s, and they gathered a committee and got worried that, hey, there's too many people moving here. We're going to have a horse manure problem and we have no way to fix it. Like we're done for it. Like we can't fix this. And then, Henry Ford invented the automobile and that changed everything. So oftentimes, whether it's new technologies or problems we can't see coming, the future isn't quite what we think it's going to be. And those changes have largely, as you mentioned, tend to be very beneficial, even if we have to learn some lessons along the way. All right, this one, I'm sure you're going to say is not your necessary area of expertise, but it's certainly a thought on people's minds. How do we prevent?
It's never stopped me from talking.
Yeah, that's right. How do we, as you sit from your Thor glass, I love it. How do we prevent enemies from hacking into AI systems and basically adding in false information? Or again, the kind of movie trope here, right? We saw this target, you hacked in, and we went after it, but it winds up being wrong.
And that's one of the things that the CDAO, that Chief Digital and Artificial Intelligence Office, has put out of, hey, this is one of the reasons why we are very cautious. And, the service chiefs have all said, hey, we need to figure out a way to govern this, is because it absolutely could be used to hack and, push out disinformation. It could be used to hack and definitely mess with sensors, mess with ships, aircraft, etc. And so that one, while it's not exactly my area of expertise, I know that there is a large concern about that in the department. And it goes back to hey, what are our responsible uses of AI? And is everybody going to come to the table and play by the same rules, or are we going to have to worry about bad actors on a global scale?
Yeah, well, as a big fan of college football, there's a lot of people not playing by the rules. So if it's happening there, you can imagine the militaries want to make it happen. So hence obviously why the military has always been careful to make sure that they guard, what they're doing and keep that sort of behind classified walls. All right, last question here. This has nothing to do with AI, but what was the most thrilling part of flying in F-18? I think a lot of us that can't fly fighter jets, never will, would love to know, hey, is it as fun as it looks? Like, what's the best part about it?
It was a lot of fun. I'm still a little kid when I go out to the airport, right? I always look up, see what plane is flying. My kids are so tired of it, right? But honestly, for me, I always liked low levels. It's where you get down by the ground, go super fast. In Top Gun 2, they show him going up right over the hill, and then he pops. Spoiler alert for those of you who haven't seen it. He kind of pops over the mountain, rolls inverted, and pulls down. And you get to do that stuff in real life, and it's fun. There's no other way to say it, right? It is just a lot of fun. That's one of the things that I really enjoyed about it, and I still look up every time I go to whenever I go out to one of the naval air stations. I'm constantly oh, is that a single seat? Who's yeah. So it never goes away.
No, that's awesome. It's great to have a lifelong passion like that. And you did nothing to dispel my notion of how much fun it would have been to fly such a plane. So thank you for that. Well, it's been a wonderful evening and very fun discussion. Thank you, Captain Betts, for joining us. You've been a great guest. On behalf of obviously everyone on this program, thank you for being here. I'm going to turn this over to Diana now.
Thanks, James.
Thank you, James. I appreciate it.
And thank you, Captain Betts. Thank you both. James, this was a lively discussion as always with you, and we're grateful for you weaving in not only hardcore military questions, but also fun with the movies and into the theaters. And Captain Betts, I was really struck by some of your comments, because I think it goes beyond the military, and what James was saying about how trust comes with the quality of data. you know that if the AI is working and it's giving you the good data and where's it coming from, people are going to trust it more. Just like with Alexa, how we're getting much more comfortable with her and more confident with that. And I also like the fact that you had mentioned about, is AI making the decision or executing the decision? Because then it goes back to some of those questions that were asked is are we moving towards a situation where we will have terminators, or is this the people are still involved? You're gonna send up the pilot with drones all around him or her, and ultimately it is that pilot's decision to take all of the information, use all of their training, and be able to make that good strong decision. Loved hearing about you flying F-18s, and hearing about your history, but also how people can get involved, and how young people can build a successful career in the military without ever having to sit in that airplane. Because some people not so comfortable with that, but showing that there's a way for us and all to get involved with the safety and security of our country, and that AI is there to help us. But in the end, we're going to be the ultimate decision maker as people. So thank you again. This was absolutely tremendous, and hearing all about what the military is doing with AI. We will gather again for our final session of 2023 next Tuesday for a conversation with Dr. Russell Barnes, whose company Sistro Solutions helps small business owners achieve profitability by incorporating AI. And Captain Betts, that was something you mentioned about how the military is also working with small business. So AI is really coming out everywhere in very different facets and very different forms. And by working together, it's making everything stronger and creating a better world for us. So stay tuned for that next Tuesday. Should be a engaging conversation. In the meantime, I want to thank James again and Captain Betts again. Thank you both again for this incredible session. I also want to thank my colleagues at the Cade Museum and the Florida Inventors Hall of Fame, and invite everyone here. If you are in Gainesville, please go to the Cade Museum. It is a fantastic site, amazing resource there in Gainesville. And the Florida Inventors Hall of Fame is in Tampa. Go check that out. Really, and if you're in Washington, D.C., please come see us here at Florida House on Capitol Hill. Thank you again for everyone for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you next week. And again, have a great day, and thank you.